Back in the spring of 2016, someone posted an unusual question to a niche online forum. They wanted to know why there were nearly 30 Wi-Fi networks seemingly broadcasting from underneath a concrete slab on a semi-rural farm property in Hawaii. At first glance, spotting several Wi-Fi networks in any neighborhood seems unremarkable. But what stopped this person in their tracks was the behavior of those signals. Every single network registered at the exact same strength, peaked at the exact same location, and that location was directly over a plain concrete pad, a slab that was, on the surface, nothing more than a cover for some gravel and dirt. To rule out coincidence, the user pulled out a Wi-Fi signal analyzer and began walking slow circles around the area. The results were consistent every time. The closer he got to that specific point on the concrete, the stronger the signal. The further he walked away, the weaker it became. There was no scatter. No variation. Just a single, focused source pulsing from underground. But it didn't stop there. Those network names weren't staying the same. Every 5 minutes or so, the SIDs would rotate and change, which is not how a standard home router behaves. Something beneath that slab was cycling through network identities on a schedule. Determined to dig deeper, he grabbed a thermal imaging device and scanned the pad. Sure enough, one section showed a noticeably higher heat signature compared to the rest of the surface. He drilled directly over that hotspot, then drilled several surrounding holes as a control test, and poured water into each one. Every hole except the one directly over the heat source overflowed. That one drained completely, as if something beneath it was consuming it. When other people online pressed him about a possible power source, he mentioned that there were power lines running nearby, but they weren't connected to the municipal grid. Drew the blinds, showered, and climbed into bed with the TV on low. About 20 minutes in, I started hearing arguing through the wall. A couple fighting, I figured. Just what I needed. The walls were paper thin enough that I could hear two distinct voices but not make out exactly what was being said. One voice was low and aggressive. The other was softer, higher pitched. But something about that second voice nagged at me. It didn't sound quite right. Like a man doing a deliberate impression of a woman rather than an actual woman speaking. The back and forth kept going. And the longer I listened, the more something felt off about it. Real arguments have overlap, people cutting each other off, talking over each other. But this had none of that. Each voice waited perfectly for the other to finish, like someone reading lines from a script they'd memorized. I turned my TV all the way down and just listened. That's when it clicked. It was one person doing both voices. Once I heard it that way, I couldn't unhear it. The natural voice, and then the same man shifting into something different, an imitation, a performance. The pit in my stomach that formed in that moment was unlike anything I'd felt in a long time. Because this wasn't a noisy neighbor argument. This was something else entirely. The voices continued for another few minutes, then went completely silent. I lay there staring at the ceiling, hoping whatever that was had run its course. Then came 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the wall right beside my bed. I froze. A muffled voice came through, "I can hear you in there." I held my breath. Then the knocking came again, same rhythm, same words, like he was waiting for a response. I grabbed the remote and turned the TV up, trying to drown it out. For about 30 seconds, nothing. Then I heard the vibration of a door opening down the balcony. He had left his room, the footsteps on the balcony were getting closer. My blinds were almost fully shut except... no explanation. No motive. Nothing. They charged him with armed breaking and entering, but investigators never figured out why he specifically chose my house. The officers even admitted they believed robbery wasn't his real intention. That thought haunted me for years. Because if he only wanted money, why sit upstairs quietly in my bedroom with weapons laid out beside him? Why wait around instead of running the second he heard police outside? The more I replayed that night in my head, the more disturbing it became. What if I had answered the phone earlier? What if I had opened the door thinking he needed help from the storm? What if I had tried running upstairs instead of hiding? I honestly believe I survived because I trusted my instincts. Even now, over 20 years later, I still remember the exact sound of those slow footsteps moving through the hallway while thunder shook the windows. Sometimes during heavy rainstorms, those memories come rushing back stronger than ever. What makes it worse is never knowing the truth. Maybe I was randomly targeted. Maybe he had been watching me for days. Or maybe those mysterious phone calls were never random at all. To this day, I still wonder if the person calling my house that night was actually the man standing outside my door, waiting to see if anyone was home. And honestly, that question is far scarier than knowing the answer. A few years later, another stormy night brought a completely different kind of terror. My mom had left town for one of her regular work trips, leaving me alone at the house for the weekend. At first, I didn't mind it. I spent the day playing video games, watching YouTube, and enjoying the sound of rain pouring outside. By afternoon, the storm had grown heavier. Dark clouds covered the sky so much that the house looked like nighttime even though it was only around 2 p.m. I ended up falling asleep on the couch downstairs. That's when I heard it. Whistling. Soft, slow, almost cheerful. At first, he knocked on the door next to mine. No answer. He stood there a full minute, knocking and asking the guy to come out. Nothing. Eventually he came to me. I opened the door and explained everything. When I finished, he paused for a moment before telling me the man had been staying there for a while. That was all I needed to hear. I asked to switch rooms. He said yes without hesitation and moved me downstairs near the front office, close to the parking lot and my car. The new room was nearly identical, but it felt like a different world, no one next door, management nearby. I locked myself in, turned the TV on low, and after a long while, exhaustion finally pulled me under. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up again. It was still dark. What pulled me out of sleep was a sound, movement outside the window. I looked toward the blinds and watched a shadow pass slowly across the gap. Then it passed again. I crept to the window, moved the blinds just a fraction, and looked out. It was him. The same man from upstairs. He was walking past my new room, back and forth, over and over, but this time he wasn't making any sounds. No voices, no knocking. He was just walking the length of the building, glancing toward my window every single time he passed. The silence made it worse. The chaos before had been terrifying. But this was something colder, calm, deliberate, patient. I watched him do it 4 or 5 times before he disappeared around the back of the motel. I didn't sleep again. The second the sky started getting light, I packed everything up, threw it in my car, and drove off without returning the keycard. I stopped at a gas station down the road for coffee. My hands were still shaking when I held the cup. That was just story 1. Story 2 involves a group of women on a road trip. A motel lobby, a man who heard too much, and a moment outside a door that turned everything from unsettling to genuinely terrifying. Stay with me. This one happened in 2022, when I was a freshman at college in Central Texas. Spring break arrived, and my family drove out to pick me up from my dorm so we could take a road trip together. It was an all-girls trip, me, 3 of my sisters, my stepmom, and my grandma. We drove up through Oklahoma to explore some Native American history my stepmom has a personal connection to, then swung over to Branson before the break ended and we needed to head back. The drive back was long, and by 8 in the evening we were all drained. We stopped at a random motel off the highway to get some sleep before finishing the drive in the morning. We checked in, paid, and before settling into the rooms, decided to go grab some pizza nearby. Before we left, we swung by the rooms to drop our bags off. My grandma called to ask for the room number so she could change clothes, and my sister answered out loud right there in the lobby. That's when I noticed him. A man standing near the entrance of the building. Not doing anything, just standing there. I've always been the type to stay aware of my surroundings, maybe more than most people. Something about this man made every alarm in my head go off quietly but instantly. He was wearing all black. Just standing. Watching. I mentioned it to my sister. She brushed it off. But I'd already realized the problem. Our room number had just been said out loud in a motel with thin walls and an open lobby, well within earshot of a man I didn't trust. We had to walk right past him to get to the exit. When we did, he looked at me. That look stayed with me the entire time we were out. We came back around 10 or 11 that night, tired and just ready for sleep. As we walked through the lobby, I saw him again. This time he was sitting in the far back corner of the lobby. In a section where the lights weren't even on. Just sitting in the dark, doing nothing, phone in his hand, whispering into it. I walked faster. My grandma called again for the room number. My sister said it out loud again. I didn't sleep with ease that night knowing he'd now heard it twice. We were barely settled in when the knock came at the door. And what my stepmom told us next about what she found waiting just outside her door in the dark hallway made us all start packing immediately. Part 4 is the conclusion you won't want to miss. We got upstairs and split into our rooms. My 2 sisters and I were in one room. My other sister, stepmom, and grandma were a couple doors down. For a few minutes everything seemed fine. We were just on our phones winding down, almost ready to sleep. Then came a knock at the door. I'd already been talking to my sisters about how uneasy I felt, so my heart dropped the moment I heard it. But it was our stepmom. The second we opened the door she stepped inside quickly, and just the look on her face told me something had happened before she said a single word. She told us to start packing. Right now. While we threw things into bags, she explained what happened. She had cracked her door open to toss some trash into the hallway and found a man standing silently against the wall directly beside her door. He wasn't startled when the door opened. He didn't flinch or step back. He just turned and stared at her for a long moment. Then, without a word, he walked calmly into the empty room between the 2 rooms our group was occupying. That was enough. We were leaving. My stepmom went to the front desk and, surprisingly, got a full refund after explaining the situation. The rest of us moved toward the exit, and as we walked out into the parking lot, we saw him again. The man in black from the lobby was stepping out of the elevator, heading back down to the ground floor, eyes tracking us as we moved. Then we noticed someone else. Another man near the far end of the parking lot. Hands cupped against car windows, peering inside, jiggling door handles, testing each one. He was methodically working his way through the lot. When he heard us getting to the car, he looked up. Then he glanced back toward the motel entrance and tilted his head, signaling. We had already started piling into the car, which is the only reason what happened next didn't become something worse. A third man came walking out of the motel entrance. Now there were 3 of them, spread across the parking lot, all slowly moving in the direction of our car. My stepmom was on the phone with my dad trying to explain the situation. Everyone in the car was begging her to drive. She finally did. We peeled out of that parking lot and kept driving until almost 3 in the morning before finding another place to stop. That motel had cockroaches. I had never been so genuinely relieved to see cockroaches in my life. I still don't know what those men were planning, or how coordinated it really was. But the way the first man had spent that entire evening positioning himself, listening for our room number twice, and then showing up outside our door in the dark, it wasn't random. Whatever it was, we got out before it could reach its conclusion.